Today we're going to talk about shuffling cards. This has been a long time coming to record this video. Hopefully, after we go through this, you'll be equipped to be able to shuffle your own deck of cards and finish this collection's assignment. Normally, if we're in the classroom, I play a couple of YouTube videos for you. They have some fun shuffling songs. Make sure you can go to the online version of these slides. I'm not going to play it for you here. Make sure you go to this second link. This first link does the real video, and this second link does an alternate version of that same video with different music. You might enjoy it. So up to this point for the card game, you should have already done your layout, where you create the controls, name the controls, create the click handlers for the buttons, and you should have created your deck of cards. You also have the video support on the WPF side of things. In Visual Studio, you can have the buttons move through the deck of cards, where you display the current card. You say, I'm on card X of N, and you can your higher and lower buttons will move you to the next card. You could even go ahead with detecting higher and lower. And we've gone over that in the videos as well, and you can display correct or incorrect, keeping score, and even handling game over. The final piece of the puzzle is this shuffling the deck of cards. I haven't given you instructions on how to do that, and so we're going to talk about that now. So how do you shuffle a normal deck of cards? You realize that when they print a deck of cards, let's say it's a normal classic face cards, 52 cards type of thing, it's one big huge sheet of paper that has one of each card on it, and then they cut it, and then they stack it. And almost inevitably, whenever they're stacking it, they keep them all in the same order because it's all done mechanically. So when you get a fresh deck of cards, you can fan through the cards and see that they're all in order based on how they were printed. But now you want to shuffle the deck of cards. We all know how to do that, and there's a lot of different techniques to that, but you're in essence randomly inserting cards in between other cards to create a shuffle, and then you cut the deck in half again and do that again, and cut the deck in half again and do that again. And you do that 3, 4, 5 times, trying to figure out how we can randomly interleave all of these cards. And so you don't do it specifically every other card, because that would still keep them in somewhat of an order. You randomly insert them at different places in the deck. So we're going to go back to the analogy that we used before, and that is my garage and my 5 cars. Okay, I don't own any of these cars, but you remember how we have this cars array. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for you. The cars array that has 5 slots that stores a car. And the slot 0 has Lightning McQueen, and slot 1 has my Ferrari, and so on and so forth. Now, if I wanted to shuffle these cards, or these cars in this case, I want to exchange places, because I'm not cutting the deck in half and interleaving them, but really what I want to do is I just want to exchange places with any 2 of the cars. So let's say I want to take my Ferrari and replace it with my GT over here. Well, the computer really can only do one thing at a time. And so the computer can pick up the Ferrari, and it can say, okay, I want to go put it into the car slot 4 over here. But now we just collided with, or crushed, or erased, however you want to put it, the GT. So I'm going to move my Ferrari back to where it came from. So how do I exchange cars in 2 different places without destroying one or the other? Think of these as integers. Think of the cars as numbers, be it any integer number. If I want to copy or move the integer in slot 1 with the integer in slot 4, how do I do that as a computer? There's no operation, there's no assignment operation that says swap places. It doesn't exist. There's the assignment operator. There's the mathematical operators, the string concatenation operators, comparison operators, logical operators, but there's no swap operators. So we know we can use a random number generator, and we can randomly choose any two slots. So I could get a random number generator and it says 2 is one of the random numbers and 4 is the other random number. And so we've selected two slots that we want to swap or exchange. But how do we actually exchange those two? So I say that we need a temporary holding place for a car or an integer. And I create that by just simply saying car temp, or in our world, we would say something like int temp. Ignore the capital I. Google Docs is helping me out here. So to create the temporary storage location, for the case here where it's cars, we're going to just say it's a car temp. So it's just a temporary holding space or holding cell. And so if we selected slot 2 and slot 4 as the ones we want to exchange, the first thing I'd do is I'd clear out slot 4. So I move the car out of the parking garage and put it down here. And now I can move car 2 to slot 4. And now I can move what's in the temp. Let's get the temp. Oh, come on. I can't get my car. So now I can grab the car that's in temp here. Oh, I know what happened. You get to see this while we record. Anyway, you get the idea. The idea is that we take the GT now, and I'm going to reset positions for a second. And we're going to take the GT, we're going to move them down here. I'm going to take the tumbler, move them over in slot 4, and then I'm going to take the GT back out of temp. For some reason I can't grab it now. And we'll move it to the back. But anyway, you get the idea. I move the GT into slot 2, and those would be done. So, come back over here. So you get the idea of what's going on here. Now, how would we code that up? Well, we would say, well, temp is equal to my cars sub 4. And then, so that moved the GT out of the way, right? That took the GT and put him down here. I'm going to hang him off the edge, see if that helps me at all. Now, I want to take my cars sub 4 gets what's in my cars sub 2. So that effectively says take the tumbler, move them over here. And then finally, the last step I want to do is I want to say, well, my cars, now that I've opened up the slot in slot 2, it can equal what's in temp. And that's taking the GT. Oh, I know what's going on, but I can't fix it. That's taking the GT. I'm going to move this out of the way. It's taking the GT and putting it in slot 2. How's that? I can do this. You see how that kind of worked? So this is the code. So long as we have a temporary holding space, this is the code that we use for just swapping the cars from two different places. Now, prior to this, we'd want two random numbers. Let's say my random number generator is called RNG, and I would say next, and give me a random number between 0 and 5, because it will only go up to 4. And I do the same thing here for give me another random number generator dot next 0, 5. And so I now can say, well, random slot 2, clear it out, and now random slot 2 gets what's in random slot 1, and now random slot 1 gets what was in temp. So let's take this kind of code to our compiler here, this online compiler. So first off, I'm going to shuffle my deck here. So in order to shuffle my deck, I need the random number generator. Random RNG equals new random. And then I need this code, essentially this code. Now I've got to clean it up to actually work in a real compiler. Now remember, we needed a temporary holding cell, and they're not called cars, they're called it's called deck here in this world, because I'm dealing with my deck of cards, not the deck, not my garage of cars. So I need to create temp, so I'm just going to create temp here. So if I ran through this code once, let's just go ahead and run it and see if it compiles. What this really should do is simply swap any 2 slots per second. Come on. Start it over again. Let's stop and go. Okay, it finally got through what we were stuck with before. Whoops, lost connection to the server. Try again. Well, this demo is going really well. I'm sure you all will enjoy this video. We're going to say run. All right. So it says current card is 1. And we're just going to keep saying higher. Card is 2. Card is 4. So notice that one time we swapped some cards, 4 and 3 were swapped. So I'm going to quit and I'm going to run this again, and we're going to see that 2 different cards, because we're randomly choosing slots. Oh, I'm choosing, I've got a bug in here. I'm just choosing between 0 and 4, because that's what our cars were. So I'm just going to put deck.length here, because it's not just 5 cards, it is 20 cards. So now it's going to give me a random number between 0 and 19, not including 20. This is 20. And so now, when I run this, if it works, yes. I'm going to say higher. And I started with card 1. Now I'm at card 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Where did it swap? 17. So it swapped 17 and 16. Great. So we get the idea now, or 15 and such. All right. So you're all saying, well, Mr. Brooks, that's great. I got a random number generator. I got my temporary holding cell. This does it once. How many times do you shuffle a deck of cards? You do it a bunch of times. So I'm going to say I is equal to 0. This is just for some counter. I'm going to say I is less than 1,000. I don't know. How many times do you want to randomly swap 2 cards? So I'm saying 1,000 times go through, choose 2 cards randomly, and swap them. So now when I run this, it might take a microsecond longer, but notice that the first card is 15, and I'm just going to keep going to the next cards here. The online compiler is having problems tonight. We'll try again. Oops. My poor network. All right, let's see if this one was the charm. All right, the first card is 10, and then I say higher, 17, 1, 13, 12. See how I have a nice randomization of my deck of cards. 1,000 is probably way too much, but you get the idea. All right, this is the solution for how to shuffle your deck of cards. You can use this same solution in Visual Studio as well as in the online compiler, online C# compiler. I hope this helps you. I'm looking forward to you turning in your card deck assignments. You have all the pieces now. Get it going. See ya.